You whisper among yourselves about what I am building on the California coastline. But you've always whispered about me. I'm quite used to being the subject of your petty gossip. It has never stayed my hand or shaped my actions. You know the minds I've recruited. You've caught echoes of the design of my machine. You know that I have the will to see it through to the end. And that terrifies you. Today on the Comic Book Report, Spectregraph by James Tynion IV and Christian Ward from DSTLRY. Stick around and check it out. Greetings and welcome in, everyone. My name is Dominic, and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I am back in the world of DSTLRY with another hardcover release from them. Yes, this is Spectregraph. I'll admit I was absolutely curious about this title, having both Tynion and Ward attached to it. These are both really prolific comic book creators I've been enjoying for a couple of years now, and I was really eager to dive in. Before we get started, though, I would like to say a huge thank you to those at DSTLRY for sending over this review copy in exchange for this honest review. And as always, I would like to shout out the channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link to them in the video's description, and if you see anything on that site you like, you can use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's comic book review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The comics in this volume were written by James Tynion IV, with art from Christian Ward. The comics in this volume were published by DSTLRY beginning in 2024. The volume itself collects Spectregraph issues 1 through 4. And finally, this is an oversized hardcover edition with glossy print paper stock, what appears to be a sewn binding with glue, and a total of 200 pages. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. I would also like to issue a mature content warning. This book contains instances of violence and nudity, and while I have tried to avoid the scenes of nudity in this video, I still wanted to make a note of it. Reader discretion advised. Okay, and here's our first dedicated look at the front cover for today's hardcover. This is Spectregraph. And yeah, an absolutely chilling image here by Christian Ward, if I'm not mistaken. Really evocative and interesting, to say the least. I think that the cover design is very, very gripping. I'll say as well, this is just an oversized hardcover release. There is not a dust jacket or slipcase or anything like that. Similar to the other hardcover releases, it has that same kind of boxy, closed look and kind of full rectangle when you open it up. The spine here has a kind of teal green looking color. We have the title of the work, the last names of some of the creatives, and at the very bottom, the DSTLRY logo. A really sleek look here. This is very similar to what I've seen with the other collections, except for in this one, the font for the title and the creators appears to be white. The other collections I have, I think the font is black. But yeah, other than that, there is a kind of uniformity so far that I've seen with these DSTLRY releases with the kind of single color spine. But yeah, I really like the look. On the back, as you've been seeing, we have some reviews or accolades, a brief blurb about the collection, the creators, the publisher, pricing information, all of that good stuff. Pretty standard fare for the back of a collection. Overall, I really like the presentation. And speaking of that presentation, even though this does not have a dust jacket, I did want to go ahead and do a spread because the image on the back and front covers does appear to be a kind of wraparound image. It kind of fills out the scene, as it were. Really like it. Of course, it's broken up by the spine design there, but again, it's really nice to see it, and I thought it was just worth noting for the video. And with that out of the way, we can go ahead and do a quick look at the binding for this book. So as I mentioned, I think this is a sewn binding with some glue in it, if I'm not mistaken. If that doesn't appear to be the case, definitely let me know in the comment section. Maybe it's just a glued binding and my sewn is just wishful thinking. But I think it is a little bit of both here. I do think the binding is pretty strong. The pages laid down fairly flat. No real eye on this collection much. Not a ton of gutter loss either. Overall, pretty happy. And now, just for fun, I mentioned some other DSTLRY releases. Well, here's some of the other titles I have read and reviewed from DSTLRY. We have Gone by Jacques and Time Waits by Marcus II, Chip Zdarsky, and others. Again, I reviewed both of these on the channel, but as you can see, they have that similar boxy shape, which I like. And in a moment, I will transition to the spine design so you can see the uniformity there as well. So far, I really enjoy these releases. They feel like a prestige hardcover in many ways. I think that this kind of format size as well really showcases the artistry in these collections. So if you're a more art-centric comic book fan, I think that you have to check out what they have going on over here at DSTLRY. Okay, and now we can go ahead and jump into today's collection. So after some really hot pink end pages, we have a beautiful title page, kind of two-page spread. Really like the design work here. We also have a page noting the title, all the creators involved, publication information, and then after that, we basically go right into the first issue. We have a bit of a prologue here, which I enjoy seeing as well. You'll see as we flip through the book a bit as well, but there are a couple different timelines we flash back to. The main story, I believe, is set in 2023 or 4, probably 24. You'll see it as I flip through. But we flash back to like the 60s and even earlier in the 2000s and things like that to fill out the scope of the story. But essentially, the overall shape of what you're going to get here with Spectregraph, it is a 4-issue series that, as far as I know, is completely self-contained. You can read it as a graphic novel. You don't need to have any prerequisite reading. It's just kind of a standalone. And the story is a really interesting concept. In my mind, it is a very 21st century kind of tech-based ghost story. It involves a kind of rich sort of occult leader who's trying to build a machine or device that will let him continue on in a kind of ghost or spiritual life after death. This machine, I believe, would end his life, but transfer his consciousness into a kind of a perfect ghost copy. He builds this machine in this room, in this house, and we kind of find out details about that as we go through the book. He has a couple agents that are basically trying to test this device, and in comes our main primary character, who is a young mother struggling to find work. She's just gotten out of a relationship and is finding it hard to deal with the just the weight of motherhood and trying to support her family and figure out where she is in life. She agrees to go to a job interview for kind of a real estate thing, I believe, last minute to show off this house. In walks one of the agents of this older man who's built this machine, and she's basically involved in the testing of this machine, the Spectregraph. Yes, the titular Spectregraph. That's what it's in reference to. After that point, within the first issue, we have the assistant for this elderly man, as well as our primary character, kind of caught in this house. Something weird has happened to them, and now they are trapped in the house. They're locked in, and they come to find out that, are they ghosts? Have they been rendered that way by the machine? What's going on? Around the house, they're finding weird disembodied spirits. They have one that's all kind of organs, another one that's just sort of skin, and one that's just kind of muscle, and they're being hunted down throughout this creepy mansion, trying to figure out what's going on. The primary character as well has a horrible kind of moral dilemma ticking clock because she left her infant son in a high chair while she attended this job interview. And she knows that that is kind of an abusive move, but she's also trying to get a job to support that baby, and it's just haunting her. It's absolutely just taking her to her wit's end. Of course, she's trying to get out of this house to get back to her baby to ensure that he's okay. And throughout the book, we have her just absolutely having these nightmares about what could be happening. And as we progress through the issues, we start to get the revelation of some of what I've already mentioned about this machine and about this person who's building this machine. We also get some really great backstory into the sort of helper character and where she kind of went from a goth girl trying to be cool to try to find something more, and has ended up completely rudderless in life. But now she's trapped in this machine. She's not sure if she's alive or dead, and she just wants to live. The two of them, even though they should be enemies, kind of strike up a partnership to try to make their way through this monster of a house. They find the kind of elderly benefactor who's created this machine, his business partner and maybe ex-lover who was also trapped at an earlier iteration of this very Spectregraph machine. It's a really, really fascinating, twisty-turny kind of story. It's an examination of these characters as well, which I really enjoyed. and where the climax of the story happens, where it all kind of funnels into. And again, this is a spoiler-filled review, but if you don't want to know the very end of Spectregraph, this is your last chance to jump out. Okay, we basically have the two survivors going toward the front of this house, and we have the kind of older benefactor creator of this machine showing up with the woman who initially came for the interview. So we're led to believe that the woman we followed the entire time is this kind of ghost copy who is in a way dead. It's a part of her that was taken away. And that woman ended up leaving after getting hit by the assistant, and she went to go home to be with her baby, and everything is fine there. She's compensated thousands and thousands of dollars not to sue for assault, and she just basically leaves. We find out as well the assistant is still alive, and the only ghost copy here, other than those already in the house, is this young woman. It's really haunting, but she's kind of at peace knowing that a part of her, maybe the bigger part of her, is at home with her son, getting to watch him grow up. It's really horrific though, and the partner in this scene basically kind of vows to try to find technology to bring ghosts back to life, presumably to save this young woman. And the original creator of the machine turns on the machine himself and is horrifically, ended. He gets his just desserts, so to speak. And that really is the overall shape or storyline for Spectregraph. Obviously, there's so much more here I'm leaving out, twists and turns, and certainly character nuances. And that's something I will say as a Tynion fan, his signature for me is just incredible characterization. I haven't read a single work from James Tynion IV that wasn't so character rich, where you could really just delve deep into each of these characters, sometimes the supporting characters just being as glowing as all the others. You know, I am a fan of his work at Something is Killing the Children, his Batman run, his Detective Comics run, The Woods, and the list goes on and on from there. The art, though, also absolutely elevates this piece throughout. Christian Ward was put on my radar when I read Aquaman Andromeda from DC Comics' Black Label a couple years ago, and since then I've really enjoyed work from him. Of course, I've read this, and I'm also planning to review a book I recently read, Batman City of Madness, also from DC Comics' Black Label. But he has a very surrealistic, kind of dreamy, nightmarish kind of art style that is really suited to works like this, absolutely. But there's a layer here in what I've seen him do for DSTLRY that is even more refined than some of those Black Label books. And believe me, I'm a fan of his art there as well, but it's something exceptional here. And I don't know if it's the quality of the print, but the colors and the sharpness of things really just pops. I absolutely loved the art here. I mentioned earlier in the review, but there is a couple sequences of nudity. I should say that the nudity is not necessarily sexualized. There's no sexual content. It's more of as they're going through the spectrograph, or the ghosts in different ways have kind of exposed genitalia in different portions of this work. I think there's only maybe 3 or 4 instances, and they're fairly brief. Again, it's not for me. Because of that nudity, I'm not sure that this is going to stay in my collection, but I was really interested to check this out. And again, I just wanted to reiterate that note in case, like me, you try to avoid certain kinds of explicit content. But that aside, a really deep character study, a psychological thriller horror to be sure. As I mentioned earlier, absolutely a 21st century ghost story of a kind. The art and the printing and the quality of this release from DSTLRY is absolutely incredible, like all of the other releases I've read from them thus far. And yeah, really a pretty impressive work here. At the back of the collection, you do have a small selection of extras in the form of production images or character models, and that really brought us to the end of the collection you've just seen. Again, this is Spectregraph by James Tynion IV and Christian Ward from DSTLRY. All that's left to do now is to give this book a grade. For a visually spectacular, character-rich thrill ride, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Spectregraph by James Tynion IV and Christian Ward from DSTLRY a B. I would certainly say this is an above-average reading experience, with a couple caveats for me personally regarding explicit material, but wow, absolutely fantastic art from page 1 all the way through the end. I thought that the twists on the tech-based ghost story was really interesting as well. The quality of this print work, again from DSTLRY, is absolutely superb, and like most other Tynion works, this really did impress me. I don't know that Spectregraph is for everyone, but it's certainly a gem amongst recent reads here at DSTLRY, and that's saying something. I love that oversized boxy format, and for an art-heavy book like this as well, it is really something to see. But those are just my thoughts on Spectregraph. I'd love to hear yours in the comments section. Have you picked this up? Have you read it? Do you plan to? Are you a fan of Tynion or Ward? Do you have any other recommendations from them? I'd love to hear it in the comments. A huge thank you again to those at DSTLRY for sending this over, and for all of you for taking this ride with me. Until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like, those comments we talked about, and maybe check out another video on your way out. Thanks again, everyone. Have a good one.